October is Mental Health Awareness Month, and last evening at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Sue Ann Barrett sought to highlight how domestic violence can trigger serious psychological damage. As Soini Gray reports, social media is making us all culpable in every violent act that goes viral.
In the videos on our Facebook timeline, in the news reports, and on the covers of our newspapers. We may even have witnessed it in our neighborhoods and families. UWI lecturer Dr. Sue Ann Barrett, who has a PhD in interdisciplinary gender studies, argues that domestic violence is a community problem because too often the violent act isn't private, even if it takes place within a private space, and too often people have very definite opinions of the actions and make judgments about who's at fault. That's particularly apparent in the comments of any violent video that goes viral.
We perpetuate the violence even when we think we are innocent. No, it must be that bad woman and bad man and bad other person. We all participate, and then we have to account for our own subjective positioning and see what we can do as we address the problem.
She says language matters. Dr. Barrett prefers the term intimate partner violence to domestic violence because the latter term presumes that the violence takes place at home and within heterosexual adult relationships. She says the reality is that LGBT people are abused, people can be abused outside of their homes, and the victims aren't always married and or in a sexual relationship. And there's a variety in the type of violence that can be inflicted on victims. Of the 4 types of violence she's identified, she says intimate terrorism is the most worrying.
I am imagining it as intimate terrorism. Persistent and systematic, though spontaneous conflict is not excluded, because you might have a blow-up that is intended to control and pose.
Dr. Barrett explains that intimate partner violence is a gendered issue, and while men are victims to all types of violent crimes, overwhelmingly, women are the victims and men the perpetrators. Dr. Barrett says sustained violence can traumatize the victim.
Persistent is the key, mental and emotional stress. Now, every time we experience trauma, all of us experience emotional and mental stress, right? We get fearful feelings, we're scared, your heart is racing, you're sad, you cry, you're worried, and it will happen. But most people, it passes off. You move on and you deal with it. And you're like, okay, move on to the next phase. But with post-traumatic stress disorder, it does not end.
She says the nature of the problem requires a community-wide treatment. That includes looking at the language used to discuss violence, commonly held opinions on gender, including victim blaming, and the awareness of and access to treatment. Soini Gray, CNews.
The Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, and the Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister, Ayanna Webster Roy, are concerned over the spate of domestic violence cases plaguing our society. A statement from the Office of the Prime Minister says the hurt felt by the victims and their families is unimaginable, as domestic violence is a violation of the human rights of individuals. The Office of the Prime Minister says it does not condone these behaviors and is doing everything possible to reduce this scourge. They urge the public, victims or observers to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-SAVE, that is 7283.